بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. So, inshallah, continuing our reading of the Johara, and we left off with the the four wajib attributes of prophets, alayhimus salam jami'an, and we discussed the details of what's entailed by those attributes and our ta'wilat, how we interpret some of the potentially confusing narrations with respect to prophets and how we understand their stories in light of the necessary attributes of prophets and the veneration that is owed to them, alayhimus salam jami'an. And so, returning to line 59, Imam Laqani says, rahimahullah, وَوَاجِبٌ فِي حَقِّهِمْ أَمَانَةٌ وَصِدْقُهُمْ وَضِفْلَهُ الْفَطَانَةُ وَمِثْلُ ذَا تَبْلِيغُهُمْ لِمَا أَتَوْا وَيَسْتَحِيلُ ضِدُّهَا كَمَا رَوَوْا. So necessary with respect to the prophets, alayhimus salam jami'an, is amana, which is the synonymous with isma, or the fulfilling the trust, infallibility of prophets. وَصِدْقُهُمْ, and then the second is their truthfulness. And so certainly if we affirm for them amana, that they cannot sin, then certainly they cannot lie. And so whether before or after prophecy, they cannot tell lies at all. Another way they discuss this in terms of proofs is it's based off of the miracle. Okay, so the mu'jiza, the miracle that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives to each prophet, that this is akin to a divine statement. It is equivalent or implicit in it is a divine statement, which is sadaqa abdi fima balagha anni. My servant is truthful in that which he conveys from me. Okay, my servant is truthful in everything that he conveys from me. And so the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is granting a miracle to a prophet, right, is a tasdeeq. Okay, it's a tasdeeq ilahi. It is a divine tasdeeq, or affirming the truthfulness of the recipient of the miracle. It's like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, this is my servant and he is truthful. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not do a tasdeeq, a confirmation of someone that lies, right? Because confirming a liar is a type of lie. Tasdeequl kadhib kadhib, confirming a liar is a type of lie. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is transcendent above lying, because his speech is a reflection of his knowledge. Everything that he knows, he speaks. Everything that he knows, he speaks, he signifies. And his knowledge is perfect and infinite, and without any preceding ignorance and without any obscurity whatsoever. And so because his knowledge is perfect, his speech is accurate. And because his speech is accurate, his confirmation of someone has to be accurate. And so when he confirms a prophet, that is an indication that that prophet cannot lie. That's an indication that the prophet cannot lie. So this is another perspective that they have in terms of proving the sidq. وَضِفْلَهُ الْفَطَانَةِ, and then add on to that the third necessary trait of prophets, which is fatana, which is intelligence, acumen, the highest mental capacity of all creatures are the intellects of the prophets alayhimus salam jami'an. This is a necessary attribute, and the basic reason that this is affirmed is لإلزام الخصوم وإبطال دعاويهم الباطلة, because this is necessary to outdo one's adversaries in terms of debate or convincing, and to falsify their false claims. إبطال دعاويهم الباطلة, to falsify their false claims. So to prove the truthfulness of al-haq, truth and revelation, and to falsify the false notions of those that reject truth, the person, the prophet, has to have intelligence. And so they are the most intelligent of creation, alayhimus salam jami'an. Allah Ta'ala says in Surah Al-An'am, verse 83, وَتِلْكَ حُجَّتُنَا آتَيْنَاهَا إِبْرَاهِيمَ, and that is our proof. right? Allah attributing the hujjah to himself subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَتِلْكَ حُجَّتُنَا آتَيْنَاهَا إِبْرَاهِيمَ. We granted to Abraham alayhi salam. And he, alayhi salatu salam, when we read his stories, that he was brilliant in the way he was able to convince, to show the absurdity of the polytheists at his time, etc., etc., the way he was able to avoid harm for himself, his family. This is something we can appreciate. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and us by extension, وَجَادِلْهُمْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. Surah An-Nahl, verse 125. Udu ila sabili rabbika, call to the way of your Lord, bil hikmati, with wisdom, wal maw'idatil hasana, and a beautiful admonition. Wajadilhum billati hiya ahsan, and debate them or convince them in the most beautiful, appropriate way, right? Ahsan is the most beautiful, appropriate way that is causing that is least susceptible to cause fitna. This is what Imam Baydawi and others, when they talk about this ayah, billati hiya ahsan, with the most convincing premises, in a way that is not offensive, in a way that does not stir up, because we hear this term jidal, argumentation. There are etiquettes, there are adab of jidal, and this is actually an entire science in our traditional curriculum, which is adab al-bahth wal-munadhara, the etiquette of munadhara, of debate. And so the based off of this verse, jadilun billati hiya ahsan, ihsan is to have, it's to be the best and to be the most beautiful. And so husn, it has these meanings. So they of course have to be each prophet has to be fatin, has to be brilliant and of the highest acumen for this. وَمِثْلُ ذَا تَبْلِيغُهُمْ لِمَا أَتَوْا. And like that, they're conveying of everything that they've been given. Okay, they're conveying all that they have been commanded to convey. And this stems off of the attribute of amana. This stems off of the infallibility of the prophets alayhi salam, because they were commanded to convey. So if they're commanded to convey and they always fulfill their commands, then they will convey. So it's necessary for them to convey. And kitmanul ilm, to hide knowledge, right? To hide knowledge is a type of, they say katman ilm mal'un. The one that hides knowledge, sacred knowledge, is cursed. All right, and cursing, when used in the Quran and Sunnah, the la'an means al-ibti'ad an rahmatillah. It's to be distant from divine grace. It's to be far from divine mercy. This is what la'an means. So and there's conditions for when this would apply. That if someone has knowledge, sacred knowledge, and they're in a situation where people need that knowledge, and there's no one else to go to, there's different conditions when this would apply, the la'an of the curse upon those that hide knowledge. But in general, it is obviously an amana to have sacred knowledge, and then to convey that when it's appropriate to. So they have tabligh. وَيَسْتَحِلُ ضِدُّهَا كَمَا رَوَوْا. And then it is impossible, the opposites of these attributes are impossible, just as كَمَا رَوَوْا, as they have narrated. Okay, so as per narration. So he attributes these four attributes, the necessity of them and the impossibility of the opposites, to riwayah, كَمَا رَوَوْا. This is important. Okay, because like we said in the beginning of the discussion, although we have logical proofs for these attributes, the premises upon which they are built are derived from the Quran and Sunnah and ijma', right? The premises upon which these proofs are built are derived from kitab wa sunnah wa ijma', the book, the sunnah, and the consensus of the scholars. And so the dalil really is shari'i. Okay, the dalil is for these four attributes are shari'i. It's a legislative proof, or a proof based off of revelation, as opposed to dalil aqli, logical proofs, or proof based off of reason alone, which we saw in the ilahiyat with the necessary attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we discussed that in detail. وجائز في حقهم كالأكل وكالجماع للنساء في الحل. Line 61. Okay, so those are the 4 necessary attributes of the Prophets ﷺ. And then yastahilu, he did the mustahil, what's impossible. That's the opposites. So what's left? The 3 types of ahkam. The jaiz, what's possible. So what's possible with respect to Prophets? He says, وَجَائِزٌ possible في حقهم, with respect to them عليهم السلام جميعا. كالأكل is, for example, eating, وكالجماع للنساء, or marriage, right, and relations with wives, with their wives. في الحل, as long as it's of course halal, right, as long as it's of course halal. So obviously, because of the amana, they can never have any sort of illicit relations. But in terms of lawful relations, this is something possible for them. And then like eating, for example, drinking. So these are examples of what are called al-a'rad al-bashariyah. Al-a'rad al-bashariyah, the normal human traits. Okay, normal human traits, just their humanness. And this is a question that came up either last class or the class before, that, you know, how do we relate to them, alayhimus salam jami'an, as humans if they're infallible, right? And this is the answer, that they're human beings in the sense that they eat, they drink, they get married, they work. One of the sunnahs of prophets that a lot of people don't realize, alayhimus salam jami'an, is working for a living. That the prophets, the sunnah of prophets by and large, was that they worked, they ate from the work of their own hands. And this is a tremendous sunnah. And our fuqaha talk about how it is a fard min fara'id ad-din. It's actually an obligation amongst the religious obligations, is to take care of oneself, because if we don't take care of our bodies, how can we fulfill the obligations of worship? And then one's dependence, if the head of the household is not providing for those that are dependent upon him, then he is neglecting their rights, and that's haram. And so working is actually a major sunnah. And they go through examples that there were, what kind of Zakaria Najjar, and the narration says Zakaria alayhi salam was a Najjar, he was a carpenter. And some of the prophets were fixed, sewed garments, some of them fixed shoes. Every prophet was a shepherd for some time. Our Prophet ﷺ was engaged in tijara. He did business. In addition to his time as a shepherd, ﷺ, he was a tajir. And the tujar, if they're honest, their rank is like the shuhada. The hadith mentions they are of the highest ranks in the ummah, the honest merchant. And so specifically tijara, this is what the best of creation, ﷺ, he engaged in tijara. And in fact, he engaged in many different types of the mu'amalat, of commercial transactions. So buying, selling, rahan, collateral. A lot of the chapters of mu'amalat he specifically did, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And so those are mashru', yani they are legislated directly. So this is a sunnah, and they say that, the one that works, that they're fulfilling, they should intend these meanings, that they should intend fulfilling an obligation. They should intend earning wealth so that they can take care of their bodies for the sake of Allah, so that they can engage in remembrance of Allah and worship of Allah. They should intend taking care of their dependents and fulfilling that obligation. They should intend. Allah Ta'ala, how many times in the Quran says, Anfiqu, Anfiqu, Anfiqu. Someone that I'm close to, for some time they were a little far from the religion, from the Quran specifically, and when Ramadan came and they picked up the Quran and they wanted to reconnect with the Quran, and they came to me and they said, subhanAllah, I never realized how much Allah asks us to spend. That, just getting through Baqarah and counting how many times Allah Ta'ala talks about infaq, spending. And how can one spend if they don't earn money? How can one spend? That presupposes that one is taking care first of their own obligations, and then they have something extra, and from that extra they can give for the sake of Allah. So that should be an intention, to earn enough so that a person can have extra to give for the sake of Allah. And many intentions that the person can have, such that because a lot of people say, well, I'm so busy with work that I don't have time for spirituality. And when you read what the fuqaha say and the ulama of both the outward and inward, they say your work is your spirituality, because you intend it for the sake of Allah, and it all becomes dhikrullah. If you have that intention, that's the intention. They call it the elixir or the philosopher's stone. It's just no one get worried. It's just a figurative, but they just mean that it turns the mundane into gold. The intention turns the mundane into gold. So all of the mubah, things that are merely permissible, like visiting a friend, smiling to your brother, spending time with the family, playing with one's children, playing with one's, having istiraha, taking the family out or going out with some friends, nature or something like this. All these things, they're mubah, they're merely permissible. But if one puts the niyyah and is conscious of a niyyah, that they're doing it for the sake of Allah, it's transformed into dhikr of Allah. It's as if the person was doing dhikr the whole time. And so this is something, so the work, especially work, is a fard in and of itself. So to specifically intend these things, the whole workday becomes the remembrance of Allah. And so the person doesn't have to worry about coming home tired and not having energy for extra dhikr, because they did dhikr the whole day. And of course we should be balanced, but no one should worry. Inshallah, Allah's all merciful. So, and another thing, real quickly, that one of the tremendous benefits of work is that it keeps people busy, who would otherwise be at home with idle hands and idle time, which is the work of the devil. And so it's actually a blessing to have those deadlines, to be under that pressure, because you're forced to not be lazy, and it actually trains the nafs. Another thing they say is that one of the benefits of working is that it's nafs tarbiyah, it's tarbiyah for the nafs. It disciplines the soul to not get lazy, to realize that there's deadlines, to realize they have to put up with people that might be frustrating, or people that might come across they rub them the wrong way, be rude, whatever. That this is all tahdhib. It is refining the ego, so that when it comes to the Shariah, the nafs is already trained, and the person has some of a grip on it. So the tremendous sunnah of working. So the Prophets, they're human beings. They ate, they married, they worked, they laughed, they cried. So these a'rad bashariyah, this is jaiz for them. They say as long as la tuaddi ila naqs, it cannot entail a deficiency. Okay, so no normal human trait that would entail some sort of deficiency, or like sickness is normal. Sickness is possible for prophets. Prophets get sick. They got sick, but not a sickness that would drive people away. So they say la tuaddi ila naqs. It doesn't entail a deficiency. Wa la tunaffir an-nas, that it would not repel people. It would not make people feel disgusted, because the proof of this, the whole purpose of a prophet is to emerge as an exemplar. So people are drawn and attracted to them, and they're magnetic human beings that invite people in, and so that they can be emulated, because they are reflecting the will of God. They are reflecting they are the window to Allah's good pleasure. And so were they to have a physical defect or a physical sickness that would be repulsive to people, it would negate the entire purpose of a prophet. And so they say, for example, a prophet cannot be majnoon. A prophet cannot have insanity or any type of craziness. A prophet cannot have smallpox, something that appears on the skin and it would turn people away. A prophet cannot have leprosy. A prophet cannot have blindness. Blindness is something they mention, actual blindness, because people are not drawn to blind people. It's not saying that any of these things are negative. People that have these conditions these are tremendous doors of Allah's pleasure by being patient during these trials, but it's not becoming for a prophet to have these because of the role of the prophet. And so this is then when they interpret, they say that, for example, Sayyidina Yacub AS, that the skin disease that's mentioned in the story, in the narrations of his story, that it was not a skin disease on the outward of his skin that drove people away. This is not correct, according to our theologians. They say that rather, if whatever disease there was, it was an internal phenomenon between his skin and his bone, alayhi salatu salam. Okay, because no one can be repelled from a prophet. And similarly, the blindness of Sayyidina Yacub AS, they say it was not an actual blindness. It was not an actual blindness. Rather, they say that the tears were so many from his weeping over Sayyidina Yusuf AS that it caused a type of like covering or haze over the eyes. This is the way they interpret it. It was a type of haze over the eyes, but it was not actual, medical blindness, based off of these traits. So, and then what about sahu? Like not paying attention or absent-mindedness. They say sahu is impossible with speech, with their speech. Okay, so with respect to the speech of prophets, they can never have sahu. They can never be absent-minded or speak without paying attention to what they're saying. Alayhim salam jami'an. As for actions, it is possible, and that's why, for example, we have sajdat as-sahu in the prayer, right? Sajdat as-sahu, that even our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this happened to him, right? The hadith of Dhul Yadayn, and aqasarta ya Rasulullah am nasid, did you shorten it on purpose or did you forget? And this is something that's discussed in the logic text, that he said kullu dhalika lam yakun, all of that did not happen. So when the Sahabi asked, because the Prophet ﷺ in a 4 rakah prayer prayed 2, and so then one of the Sahabi, Dhul Yadayn, Allah be pleased with him, he says, aqasarta ya Rasulullah am nasid, did you shorten it ya Rasulullah to 2, or did you forget? Was it sahu? And he said, kullu dhalika lam yakun, all of that did not happen. So the logicians have fun with that. Is that what exactly does that mean? But the point is, then when the Sahaba clarified that yes, in fact 2 were prayed, he finished it and then did the sajdat as-sahu. So they say that therefore sahu in actions can happen. Okay, sahu in actions can happen. But they say that back to the isma of the Prophet ﷺ, because in a Sahih hadith he says, إِنَّمَا تَنَامُ عَيْنَايَ وَلَا يَنَامُ قَلْبِي. In Bukhari and Muslim, إِنَّمَا تَنَامُ عَيْنَايَ وَلَا يَنَامُ قَلْبِي. Only my 2 eyes sleep, but my heart does not sleep. Our Prophet said in Sahih hadith, only my 2 eyes sleep, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but my heart does not sleep. Yani even in his sleep, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his heart was with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was in the state of remembrance of his Lord. And Sahih hadith. So certainly then in the prayer he would not be forgetful of his Lord. So his sahu is not like our sahu. Okay, our sahu unfortunately is because of shaitan and our nafs, and he even has a name, the devil that messes with people's prayers. Does anyone know his name? I believe it's Khinzib, if I remember correctly. Khinzib. It's a really gross name, like just sounds. So that he, if my memory is correct, I can check inshallah, but this is what I recall. So there's a devil that comes right when we, and this is one of the proofs. If people have iman problems, just pray salat and see where the thoughts go. You'll remember everything. You'll remember every task that you forgot that day. It'll just come to your mind, right? A'udhu billah, may Allah forgive us. So notice how challenging it is for us to concentrate in the prayer. This is why sahu happens with us, because we get busy planning the rest of our day and what we're going to do, and how after the salams we're going to jump back into dunya and put our arms around her neck. No, but a prophet would never be in that state, that they're thinking about things and forgetting the prayer. So they say the sahu of the best of creation, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, first of all, it was for tashri'ah, it was for legislation, so that we would know what to do when we need to do sahu. It had to happen at least once, so that the ummah would know what to do. But secondly, this one of them has a nice 2 lines of poetry where he says, Ya sa'ili an Rasulillahi kayfa saha, wa sahu min kulli qalbin ghafilin lahi, qad ghaba an kulli shay'in sirruhu fasaha, amma siwallahi fata'zimu lillahi. He says, oh, one who's asking about the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, kayfa saha, how could he have been absent-minded? Wa sahu min kulli, while sahu is from every heart that's in ghafla and not paying attention, heedless hearts. قَدْ غَابَ عَنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ سِرُّهُ فَسَهَا عَمَّا سِوَى اللَّهِ. His sir, his blessed heart, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was absent from everything else other than Allah. It became absent from everything else other than Allah. فَتَعْظِيمُ لِلَّهِ. So the veneration was always for God. The veneration of the Prophet's heart was still for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he did not become, if any sahu happened with his actions, it was not sahu into dunya, it was sahu towards Allah. That he would go more towards Allah and forget even whatever action he was involved in. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. This is how they explain. Naam. So that may Allah help us to focus in our prayers, inshallah. And then they, for forgetfulness, they say that with respect to things that of the religion, before they are conveyed, that it is impossible. Okay, because of the tabligh, because of the attribute of tabligh, that they have to convey what they're commanded, so it's impossible for them to forget anything before it's conveyed. And then Imam Bajuri says, as for after conveying it, it's possible. It is possible for something to be forgotten after it's conveyed, but they say that it cannot be from the devil, though. Okay, so the devil's causation of forgetfulness would not apply to a prophet, that a prophet is too high in rank such that a devil could affect them in any way. And we know many hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said everyone has a qareen, everyone has a devil companion, and that his qareen ﷺ, Allah, he said Allah preserved him from it. فَأَسْلَمَ. So the narration says فَأَسْلَمَ. So the companion, the qareen, the jinn companion became Muslim, right? And another narration, فَأَسْلَمُوا. So I was safe. Allah protected me from him, so I was safe. So the shaitan cannot affect any of the prophets, ﷺ, forgetfulness or otherwise. And they say, as for Yusuf AS' statement, وَمَا أَنْسَانِهُ إِلَّا الشَّيْطَانِ, that in Surah Al-Kahf, when Sayyidina Musa AS was going in the boat, and the young boy who was Sayyidina Yusuf AS, he was a prophet as well, going to be a prophet, that when they passed the point where the fish jumped out, where they were supposed to meet Sayyidina Khidr AS, that the Quran cites Sayyidina Yusuf AS as saying, none caused me to forget it but shaitan, that they say this was tawadu' minhu, this was humility on his part. This was humility on his part, and this is something that obviously the prophets are the masters of, is humility. And so they would ascribe things to shaitan, even though shaitan had no influence on them, because shaitan likes, when we forget. So this is what they say, and we talked about this last class as well, that even with Sayyidina Adam as salam, that the waswas of shaitan did not penetrate his blessed heart alayhi salam, that it was simply an outward form, not an inward effect. And of course we can appreciate that the wisdom that these normal human traits are possible for prophets is because they are from our jins, they are from Bani Adam, they are human beings, alayhimu salam jami'an. And when they do these normal things, then it's tashri' for us, that we need an example even for the normal things of life. And so had Allah Ta'ala sent down angels instead of prophets to convey the message from Him subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we would not know the sunnah of eating, and we would not know the sunnah of marriage, and we would not know the sunnah of being with one's family, and we would not know the sunnah of dealing with illness, and we would not know the sunnah of dealing with tribulation, and we would not know the sunnah of if someone is rude to us, what to do, etc., etc., etc. And so they say that the prophets, ﷺ, that this was from the hikmah of Allah Ta'ala, is that they have these a'rad bashariyah, they have these normal human traits, as long as with the conditions that we mentioned, that it's nothing of a defect or nothing that would repel people away. So, and based off of the ranks of prophets, which we're going to discuss today, inshallah, it's coming up next, is that because we know that the ranks of prophets are higher than angels, right? The ranks of prophets are higher than the ranks of angels. And so they say that the outward of prophets is bashari, whereas the inward, one of our theologians says, the inward is malaki bal a'la. They say the outward of prophets is human, because they are from our jins, but the inward, i.e. their hearts, their connectedness with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is angelic, Bal a'la, rather higher. Rather higher. So this is why some of them said, one of the wisdoms that Allah Ta'ala sent down angels on Badr, because this was the only time in history where angels fought alongside believers. Angels never came and fought, right? Angels would destroy entire cities. They would pick up entire cities and crush them in history. But they would never actually come on the battlefield and be with their, on their horses with the swords, etc. This happened only at Badr. And Allah sent down 1,000 and then 3,000 and then 5,000. If you read Surah Al-Anfal, that Allah actually gave revelation to the angels of what to do that day. One of the things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned to them is even because they didn't know how to kill a human. They had never fought before. So Allah revealed to them how to kill the human, where to strike, etc., etc. It's in the surah. So one of the wisdoms they say of those angels is because that this was first of all a tashrif of the Prophet ﷺ, is that the angels would actually come to be on with him side by side and with the companions. And also they say that just as Badr, the 313 that were at Badr, that those Sahaba, Allah be pleased with them all, were the best of the ummah. They were the best of the ummah. So too those 5,000 angels were the best of the angels. And so they were selected because they were the best of the angels. They were honored to come down and be with the best of the human beings at that time. And so there's the angels are honored to serve followers of the Prophet ﷺ. Okay, so 62. وجامع معنى الذي تقرر شهادة الإسلام فطرح المرى. What conjoins, what gathers معنى الذي تقرر, all the meanings that are affirmed here, that we have just affirmed, all of the meanings that have just been affirmed, i.e. all of the necessary attributes, all the ilahiyat, the necessary, impossible and possible attributes of the divine, and then what we just finished of the nubuwat, the necessary, impossible and possible attributes of the prophets ﷺ. Okay, so with the divine we said 20 necessary attributes, and then their opposites, that's 20. And then possible, we discussed what's possible. And there's really one possible attribute for Allah. What's that? Possible attribute? Possible. What's the one possible attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Yeah, exactly. So that his ijad or i'dam, his bringing into existence or leaving in non-existence of all things possible. That's the one. So 41 attributes of the divine. 41 attributes of the divine. Okay? That's what we covered. With the Prophets ﷺ jami'an, how many necessary attributes? 4. How many impossible? For 4 opposites, that's 8. How many possible attributes? 1, which is what? Arad Bashariya, normal human traits that entail no deficiency, are not repulsive. So total how many? 9 plus 41, 50. 50 attributes. That's the heart of aqidah. That's the heart of aqidah. 50 attributes, 41 attributes of the divine, okay, and then 9 attributes of Prophets ﷺ. So 50 tenets of faith that every Muslim must know, and most Muslims innately know. These are, if anyone were to ask, can God do anything possible? They'd say, of course. If anyone were to ask a Muslim, does God have speech? He'd say, of course. I read the Quran every day. Everyone would ask, are prophets perfect? Of course, they're the best of creation. So they are commonsensical, alhamdulillah, for most Muslims. But it's good to go through it and study it properly, just so that it's clear. It's clear in the mind and the heart of the believer. And it's reminding ourselves and reflecting on these. These are tremendous gates of connecting ourselves with Allah and His Messenger, alayhi salam jami'an, because messengers, alayhi salam jami'an, because reflecting on Allah's irada, reflecting on Allah's qudra, these are tremendous things that are helping us, that help us day to day in life. So like did in the Arba'in, the hadith, the Sahabi came and said, Awsini ya Rasulullah. And what was the answer? La taghtab. Faraddada miraran. So he kept on asking. What was the answer? لا تغضب لا تغضب لا تغضب لا تغضب لا تغضب. Don't get angry, don't get angry, don't get angry. Well, one of the wisdoms of that is because anger is, if it's not for the sake of Allah, then it's in a sense going against Allah's irada, right? If it's not for the sake of Allah, then it's a type of complaint or rejection, a'udhu billah, of the will of God. And so learning to accept what Allah does with us, learning to accept what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does with us. Like they say, roll with the punches, right? Roll with the punches. And in the poetry of some of the Sufis, they would refer to Allah's irada as Salma. This is the name they would give. It's a woman's name because irada is feminine, so they would say Sallim li Salma, you know, resign and submit to Salma, to Allah's will. Wasir haythu sarat, and go wherever she goes. Watba riyah al-qada, and follow the winds of the divine decree. Wadur haythu darat, and turn whichever way she turns. So just going with the flow, right? Going with the flow. This is something that reflecting on the irada of Allah Ta'ala and learning how to accept it. You know, the best of creation, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he comes one time in the house. A lot of little things that happen in the in one's home with families, you know, that it's full of tremendous blessings, tsunamis of blessings, but there's subtle frustrations just to keep everyone's nafs in check. And this is just the nature of life. And so Sayyidina Anas ibn Malik, who was the servant of the Prophet ﷺ for 10 years, he said in his narration, he said that I used to do things that any little boy would do, like I would mess up with the tasks and errands. So one day he broke a dish, and the family of the Prophet ﷺ, they did not have tremendous material wealth, so it's a big deal. So some of the family got upset, you know, they were really upset at Anas, like, you broke the dish. And the best of creation, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, comes in, and immediately he sees the situation, and he just says one word. He says, Qudiya. It was decreed. And he smiles. You know. And so he's teaching us that whether on the macro or the micro, that just to be in tune, in line with the divine decree, and go wherever she goes. So وَجَامِعٌ مَعْنَى الَّذِي تَقَرَّرَ شَهَادَةَ الْإِسْلَامِ فَطْرَحِ الْمِرَى, that what conjoins all of these, the meanings that have been affirmed here, the 50 attributes, okay? What conjoins all 50 of these attributes? Shahadat al-Islam, the 2 testimonies of faith. La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, right? This dhikr has all of these 50 tenets of faith in them, okay? These 2 statements that one cannot become a Muslim without. And this is something they mentioned, that perhaps one of the reasons that this statement is chosen to be the gate, the key to enter into Islam in this world, is because entailed in it are all 50 of these tenets. All 50 of these tenets of faith are entailed in the Shahada of Islam. And so they say, because La ilaha illallah, the meaning of ilah is there's dalala bil mutabaqa and dalala bil iltizam. There's a signification by correspondence, what its essential meaning is, and there's what's implied in signification by implication, iltizam. They say mutabaqa bil mutabaqa, the corresponding essential definition of ilah is al-ma'bud bihaq. Al-ma'bud bihaq, the one that is rightfully worshipped. Al-ilah, what's ilah? The one that is rightfully worshipped, deity. So there's no one rightfully worshipped except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. La ilaha illallah. But then they say by iltizam, by implication, the meaning of ilah is al-mustaghni amman siwa, al-muftaqiru ilayhi ma'ada. Al-mustaghni amman siwa, al-muftaqiru ilayhi kullu ma'ada. The one that is fully independent of all besides him, and the one that all besides him is in need of. Okay, the one that is fully independent of all besides him, and the one that all besides him is in utter need of. So Allah has ghina, He is mustaghni, yani He is independent, free of any need, and all else in creation has iftiqar to Him. They have need of Him, and this is one of the meanings of as-samad. As-samad, qul huwallahu ahad, Allahu as-samad. As-samad it has to, samada is to be like, is to be aligned. Like qasada is to seek. When you aim for the target, for the bullseye, and align yourself and strike it. This is qasada or samada. That's linguistic lughatan, but it has the meaning of alladhi yuqsad عند الحوائج. You see, it comes from the meaning of qasada, which is to seek out, to target, to aim. So the samad is alladhi yuqsad, the one that is aimed at, the one that is sought, عند الحوائج, during times of need. When there's need, the one that is sought, that's called as-samad. Well, all of creation at every moment is in need of Allah. All of creation at every moment is in need of Allah, just existentially, ontologically alone. There's no, who is sustaining us at every moment? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's one of the meanings of al-qayyum. Right? Allah is al-hayy, He is alive, but He's also al-qayyum, the one that is keeping everything qa'im, the one that is keeping everything in existence, qa'im, being, qa'im bima'na mawjood, being, existing. So the al-qayyum is the one that maintains. That's why one of the things that when we make dhikr of Allah Ta'ala, that inshallah Allah opens our hearts, we ask Allah to open our hearts to where instead of just seeing the qa'im, we see it being the thing being maintained by al-qayyum. This is the lens that we need to inshallah try to see things as not simply, this is this thing and this is that thing and this is that person, but this is this thing that Allah is creating, this is this thing that Allah is creating, this is that person that Allah is maintaining, this is that person that Allah is maintaining. And so if that person offends me, then I realize this is a test from Allah, the one controlling him and who created all of the molecules in his brain and all of the sounds out of his mouth, such that he said that to me. And so this is coming from Allah ultimately, and so I need to interact with Allah, not just that person. And so this is something inshallah that we need to work on. But that's the implication of ilah. Okay, ilah by implication is as-samad al-qayyum, the one that everything is in need of at every moment, and He Himself subhanahu wa ta'ala is in need of nothing. If we reflect on that meaning, we will perceive all of the 20 attributes. Because if He is fully independent, then He is certainly existent, and His existence is necessary. And He has to be timeless if He has necessary existence, and He has to be different from His creation. Otherwise He too would have need. If He's the only independent one, He has to be different from His creation. And He has to be one, because otherwise we could go to someone else that we need, the second one that we have need of. No, al-ilah is the one, al-muftaqir ilayhi kullu ma'ada, everything other than Him needs Him. And so He has to be one. And if everyone is in need of Him, He has to be alive. How can He fulfill needs without life? He has to have knowledge, He has to have will, He has to have power. And so, and then He has to be transcendent above deficiencies. If He's fulfilling all needs and is fully independent, He has no deficiency, meaning He has speech, sight, and hearing. And so all of the necessary attributes of the divine. Tayyib, Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Muhammad is the messenger of God. If he's the messenger of God, then he is fulfilling the trust. He is entrusted with this messengership, meaning he is fulfilling the trust. If he's fulfilling the trust and he is confirmed as a messenger, he has to be truthful. And then he has to convey that trust, so he has to be the most intelligent. And that he is, in part of fulfilling the trust is conveying everything that he is conveying, so he has to convey it. And he cannot have those opposites. And then he still is human, right? If he is the messenger of Allah, he is still a human messenger. And so as long as a human trait does not entail deficiency or cause repulsion, it is possible. And so this is that, if we reflect, and there's much more we could do, that what our scholars have articulated, what's just the aqidah that is entailed in these two statements. All of our aqidah is entailed in these statements. And they say that, Imam Sanusi rahimahullah, his Sanusiya al-Barahin, he discusses this in detail, but at the end he says, He says that, and perhaps due to its brevity, along with how it includes everything that we have mentioned, the Shariah has made it the tarjuma, the indication of faith in the heart, and that no one's faith is accepted in the community except through this tarjuma. This is the translator of our faith. That it's so brief, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. It's just a few words, La ilaha illallah for Muhammadur Rasulullah. 7 words. And 7 words entails all of our aqidah that we have to know as mukallafin. So brief yet so inclusive, and this is the translator of the faith in the heart. A tremendous thing. And then he says, فَعَلَى الْعَاقِلِ أَنْ يُكْثِرَ مِنْ ذِكْرِهَا. So it behooves the person of intellect to make much remembrance of it. مُسْتَحْضِرًا لِمَا احْتَوَتْ عَلَيْهِ مِنْ عَقَائِدِ الْإِيمَانِ, while trying to bring to mind all of the aqidah that it entails in it. حَتَّى تَمْتَزِجَ مَعَ مَعْنَاهَا بِلَحْمِهِ وَدَمِهِ, until these meanings are absorbed into the person's very flesh and blood. Until these meanings are absorbed into the person's very flesh and blood, so that when the dish breaks, we're calm. Right? So that when the dish breaks, we're calm. And then فَإِنَّهُ يَرَى لَهَا مِنَ الْأَسْرَارِ وَالْعَجَائِبِ إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى مَا لَا يَدْخُلْ تَحْتَ حَسْرٍ. And inshallah, Imam Sanusi says, when that happens, the person, by Allah's permission, inshallah, will experience some of the secrets and wonders of the shahada. وَبِاللَّهِ التَّوْفِيقِ لَا رَبَّ غَيْرُهُ وَلَا مَعْبُودَ سِوَاهُ. And so by Allah's tawfiq, there is no Lord besides Him. And this is something that, may Allah give us tawfiq in that, inshallah. And the hadith says the best thing that I and the prophets before me said is La ilaha illallah. Right? The best thing that I and the prophets before me said is La ilaha illallah. There's a hadith. And so this is the... So he says that this shahada encompasses everything of our aqidah. فَطْرَحِ الْمِرَاسِ. So do away with argumentation. Argumentation is just... there's a special place in paradise for people that leave argumentation even when they're right. There's a special place in paradise for people that leave argumentation even when they're correct. And inshallah, when these meanings are absorbed in our flesh and blood, then we will be disgusted by argumentation. We won't want to argue with anyone. Line 63. وَلَمْ تَكُنْ نُبُوَّةٌ مُكْتَسَبَةٌ وَلَوْ رَقَى فِي الْخَيْرِ أَعْلَى عَقَبَةٌ. Prophethood, nubuwah, is not earned. Prophethood is not earned. Even if one were to ascend in virtue to the highest plateau. وَلَوْ رَقَى فِي الْخَيْرِ. Even if one were to ascend in virtue, أَعْلَى عَقَبَةٌ, the highest plateau, the highest plane, one cannot earn nubuwah. One cannot earn prophethood. So the next line clarifies, بَلْ ذَاكَ فَضْلُ اللَّهِ. Rather, it is but a gift from Allah. يُؤْتِيهِ لِمَنْ. He gives to whomever. يَشَاء. He wills. A gift, a divine grace that He gives to whomever He wills. جَلَّ اللَّهُ وَاهِبُ الْمِنَنِ. Transcendent is God, the giver of gifts. Transcendent is God, the giver of gifts. So some of the philosophers in Islam, that the Muslims were dealing with, within Islam and outside of Islam. Okay, some of the philosophers within Islam and outside of Islam, they fell on either side of this. Some of them said that, some of them said that prophethood can be earned. Not either side of this. Some of them said that prophethood could be earned. And so they said that if a person practiced virtue enough, if they got rid of the vices of the human tendency, and they inculcated human virtue, and they perfected their ethics, then they could earn prophethood. Okay, this is the opinion of some philosophers, and this is contrary to the Islamic position in Islam, and according to in Islam that prophethood is only gifted. Allah selects. يَخْتَصُّ بِرَحْمَتِهِ مَنْ يَشَاءُ. يَخْتَصُّ بِرَحْمَتِهِ مَنْ يَشَاءُ. Allah says in the Quran, He specifically chooses for His mercy whomever He wills. So this is ikhtisas. It's all ikhtisas. It's just the divine selection. It's the divine selection. And one of the problems with this position that prophethood could be earned is that it opens the door to prophets after our Prophet ﷺ. That if prophethood could be earned, then the ability to inculcate virtue remains today, right? Whereas we know qat'an and definitively as a central tenet of Islam that our Prophet ﷺ is the last and final messenger, last and final prophet. And Allah Ta'ala says Khatim al-Nabiyyin in Surah Al-Ahzab. He refers to the Prophet ﷺ as seal of the prophets, and he said ﷺ in many narrations, La Nabiyya Ba'di, there is no prophet after me. Wa ana al-Aqib alladhi la Nabiyya Ba'di, in one narration, I am the Aqib, I am the final one, the closing one, the last one, that then there's no prophet after me. So this is of course an issue of ijma'. There is consensus of the entire ummah on this. And so if someone were to not accept the finality of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as the last prophet, this would be kufr. Okay, this would be kufr on their part. They mentioned that as for walaya, as for being amongst Allah's people closest to Allah, there's some aspects, some types are muktasib, some types are ghayr muktasib. Some types are muktasib because obviously a person who's a wali is someone that's implementing the Shariah inwardly and outwardly, right? Inwardly and outwardly. So they're avoiding the haram of the outward and fulfilling the obligations of the outward, and they're avoiding the haram of the inward and they're fulfilling the obligations of the inward. Avoiding showing off, avoiding envy, avoiding being impressed with oneself. So riya, hasad, ujub, all of these things which are haram. So that's muktasib. One works on themselves. But there's other gifts, other types of walai that are ghair muktasib. Allah just selects and grants certain openings for people. طيب, line 65. وأفضل الخلق على الإطلاق نبينا فمل عن الشقاق. The best of creation على الإطلاق, without exception. The best of creation على الإطلاق, without exception, in an absolute sense. Okay, whether of the terrestrial realms, whether of the celestial realms, whether of humankind, whether amongst the jinn, whether amongst the angels, of anything and everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's what ala al-itlaq. Ala al-itlaq means absolutely in its full generality without any exception, condition or stipulation. Nabiyuna is our Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, right? The best of creation is our Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And this is look at the idafa there, Nabiyuna, right? Nabiyuna, he says, our Prophet. They say this idafa is tashrif to the mudaf ilayh. This idafa is honoring the mudaf ilayh, that we are honored to be. We can say he's our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's something that all of the previous, all the prophets foretold of his coming, and is something they would all wish to have. And so we've been blessed to be in this ummah. Imam Busiri says, بشرى لنا معشر الإسلام إن لنا من العناية ركن غير منهدم لما دعا الله داعنا لطاعته بأفضل الرسل كنا أفضل الأمم. Right? بشرى لنا, good. Imam Busiri rahimahullah says, good glad tidings for us, معشر الإسلام, O people of Islam, O Muslims. إن لنا من العناية, we have of inayah, of divine care and concern. This is from Allah's inayah to us, to put us in this ummah. We have of this Allah's inayah ruknan, a pillar غير منهدم, that can never be broken. What is that? لما دعا الله داعنا لطاعته بأكرم الرسل, when Allah called the one who called us to worship Allah, when he called him بِأَكْرَمِ الرُّسْلِ, the best of prophets, the most noble of prophets, كُنَّا أَكْرَمَ الْأُمَمِ, we became the best of ummahs. We became the best of ummahs. And this is confirmed, كُنْتُمْ خَيْرَ أُمَّةٍ أُخْرِجَتْ لِلنَّاسِ, you are the best of ummah, of communities that were brought out لِلنَّاسِ, for the benefit and service of humanity. So this is something tremendous to rejoice in. And there's ijma' on this, that the fact that our Prophet ﷺ is the best of creation. There's ijma' of this, except for one alim. And so when there's one alim that goes against an ijma', it's basically considered a shadh position and aberrant position. But Imam Zamakhshari, rahimahullah, a great master of tafsir, that he was Mu'tazili, and he misunderstood some ayat in Surah At-Takwir that praise Jibreel alayhi salam with 6 tremendous descriptions, and then gives one ayah for our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So in Surah At-Takwir, Allah Ta'ala says, إِنَّهُ لَقَوْلُ رَسُولٍ كَرِيمٍ, verily this is a statement. So the Quran is a statement brought down with a Rasul. So the Rasul here is referring to Jibreel alayhi salam. He's the messenger bringing down the Quran to our messenger. So he is the celestial messenger alayhi salam, Jibreel alayhi salam. So Rasulin Kareem, a noble messenger, Dhi Quwwatin, who has so Rasul Kareem, Dhi Quwwatin, who has tremendous power. Jibreel alayhi salam would turn over entire cities when Allah commanded him to destroy people. Dhi Quwwatin, عند ذي العرش مكين, who is established, has a position, has a makan, عند ذي العرش, in the divine presence. That with the divine presence, Jibreel alayhi salam has a rank, and because Allah is ذي العرش, He's the possessor of the throne. مطاع ثم, and Jibreel alayhi salam, muta is to be obeyed. Thamma, over there. So over there, in the presence of the divine, Jibreel alayhi salam is muta, he is obeyed. Yani, what's the rank of Jibreel alayhi salam? In the presence of the divine, Jibreel is obeyed, right? And we know from the hadith, when Allah Ta'ala loves someone, does He simply tell all the angels to love him? Who does He tell first? Jibreel alayhi salam. And first, Jibreel loves that person. And then Jibreel alayhi salam calls out to the angels, love so-and-so, verily Allah loves so-and-so, so you love him too. And then all the angels love that person. So Jibreel alayhi salam is obeyed by all the angels, even though in the divine presence. Ameen, and he fulfills the trust. He safeguards the message. He does not betray the trust in any way. It comes down pristine, just as it was revealed, given to Sayyidina Jibreel alayhi salam. So he is trustworthy in bringing down the message. So Imam Zamakhshari, he said, look at all these descriptions. The ayah in that same surah about our Prophet ﷺ says, وَمَا صَاحِبُكُمْ بِمَجْنُونَ. Speaking to Quraysh, your companion is not Majnoon. Your companion is not Majnoon. He is not without intellect. So this is the mistake of Imam Zamakhshari, that he misunderstood that therefore this is a proof that Jibreel alayhi salam is of a higher rank. But there's ijma' of the ummah that the Prophet ﷺ is higher than Sayyidina Jibreel alayhi salam. And there's many proofs of this. Sidratul Muntaha, Jibreel alayhi salam could not cross, but our Master Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam crossed, etc. There's many proofs. But to explain these verses, the response was that this is not to say that Jibreel alayhi salam is better. Rather, the Quraysh did not know Jibreel alayhi salam. And so they could have tried to attack, saying, the Quran, fine, you're Sadiq Amin, Ya Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you're truthful. But what if the angel that brought it to you messed up? What if the angel that brought it to you made a mistake? And so Allah clarifies the rank of Jibreel alayhi salam, because that's the thing that they doubt. But they did not doubt our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that his virtue and his rank was known to even his enemies. Right? Sayyidina Ali, at the hijrah of the Prophet ﷺ, Sayyidina Ali was commanded to stay back, and he stayed back 3 days doing what? In the hijrah, when the Prophet ﷺ migrated, why did Sayyidina Ali stay back? To give back the wada'i, to return people's things that were in the possession of the Prophet ﷺ. I mean, he's making hijrah to escape assassination of the people that leaving their possessions with him. So they knew his rank and they knew his virtue, and this is why Allah says, وَمَا صَاحِبُكُمْ بِمَجْنُونَ. your sahib, i.e. the one that you have suhbah with, the one that you know his virtue, the one that you know his rank, he's not majnoon. Everything he's saying is from intellect. It's his intellect is sound, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and you know this, and you know his rank, and so it's known to friend and foe alike, the rank of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so then there are narrations, and our Prophet said sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Ana sayyidu walidi Adam wala fakhr." Ana sayyidu walidi Adam wala fakhr. I am the master of humanity. I am the master of humanity. Wala fakhr, and there is no boasting in this. Right? This is not pride in any way. Rather, it's tahadduth bin ni'mah. It's informing of a blessing, which is from the sunnah. It's a type of shukr, and also it's teaching. It's ta'lim. The Prophet ﷺ has to convey this knowledge to us. So then there's other narrations. La tukhayyiruni ala Yunus ibn Matta. La tufaddiluni ala Yunus ibn Matta. For example, the hadith that's in Bukhari and Muslim, do not prefer me over Jonah, the son of Matta, Yunus, the son of Matta, alayhi salam. Do not prefer me over Yunus ibn Matta. And there's other narrations that are similar. How do we reconcile the fact that our Prophet ﷺ is the best of creation with narrations such as this, and also in the Quran that la nufarriqu bayna ahadin, that we don't distinguish between the prophets? So how do we reconcile? Because Allah Ta'ala also says, وَفَضْنَا, we have given some merit over others. وَفَضَّلْنَا بَعْضُهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ, that there are ranks amongst the prophets. So they say that, for example, do not prefer some over others, or do not prefer me over Jonah, in a way that would do tanqis to Jonah, in a way that would be improper, or ascribe a type of deficiency or something negative to Yunus alayhi salam or any of the other prophets. So when we say our Prophet ﷺ is the best of creation and the best of prophets, by no means is this, and we don't say this out of insult or any sort of in ascribing deficiency to the other prophets. No, they're all the best of creation, but amongst them, Allah has honored Sayyidina Muhammad ﷺ to be the best. And another interpretation is that that perhaps the rank of the Prophet ﷺ had not yet been revealed to him. So before he had that knowledge, he said, "Don't prefer me over Yunus ibn Matta." But then later he learned about his rank, and so he said, "Ana sayyidu walidi Adam wala fakhr." And then the third interpretation is that he said this out of ta'addub and tawadu', out of his perfect adab and his humility, saying, "Don't prefer me over Yunus ibn Matta." So these are some of the ways this is interpreted and reconciled by our ulama. And specifically, Sayyidina Yunus alayhi salam is mentioned because one of the things people might think, and they mentioned, is that in the Isra wal Mi'raj, our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam ascends above the seven heavens and past the lot tree, the furthest lot tree. And Sayyidina Yunus alayhi salam, he was in the ocean and swallowed by the whale. So there's, in physicality, one is high and the other is low, physically. So our Prophet ﷺ is saying, don't think that this is a reflection of metaphysics, i.e. the Allah is outside of time and place. And our Prophet ﷺ in the Isra wal Mi'raj and Sayyidina Yunus ﷺ in the belly of the whale, they're both with Allah. They're both with Allah, and Allah is with both of them. Okay, so Allah's witness is not bound by time and space. So don't prefer me over Yunus ibn Matta, i.e. even though there's different physical locations with respect to connectedness with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's no difference. They're prophets and they're with their Lord, fully with their Lord. So, وَأَفْضَلُ الْخَلْقِ عَلَى الْإِطْلَاقِ نَبِيُّنَا فَمِلْ عَنِ الشِّقَاقِ. Again, Imam Laqani teaching us at the end of so many lines, get away from argumentation, get away from useless debates that are not of benefit, especially with aqidah. It's interesting, we're in a time now where the thing people, unfortunately many young Muslims like to debate the most and argue about the most is aqidah, which is the most dangerous thing to argue about. Right, it's the most dangerous thing to argue about. And so from the adab, from the etiquette of a person that's studying, the student of knowledge, or is really to I mean, for a layperson, it's haram to argue about religion in general, unless there's a clear benefit, and it's something that there's no shubha as to the issue or something. Universal things that every Muslim knows, just to defend the basics of Islam. But other than that, to get into some of these issues and tenets and the debates and to argue about them, it's haram for a layperson. And for a person of knowledge, it's it's makruh unless there's benefit, or unless it's privately with other scholars or something. So get away from famila an shiqaq, get away from munaza'a, arguing. وَالْأَنْبِيَا يَلُونَهُ فِي الْفَضْلِ, and all of the prophets then follow him sallallahu alaihi wasallam in rank. 66. وَالْأَنْبِيَا يَلُونَهُ فِي الْفَضْلِ, so all of the prophets and messengers follow him in rank. وَبَعْدَهُمْ مَلَائِكَ ذِي الْفَضْلِ, and after them the angels ذِي الْفَضْلِ, who also possess tremendous honor and rank. And so the five our Prophet ﷺ is the best of creation. After him are the rest of the ulul azm, because there's 5 ulul azm, the possessors of resolve, the masters of resolve, okay, that Sayyidina Ibrahim a.s. after our Prophet ﷺ, Sayyidina Ibrahim a.s., and then Sayyidina Musa a.s., and then Sayyidina Isa a.s., and then Sayyidina Nuh a.s. And so Ibrahim, Musa, Isa, Nuh. This is the order, okay? This is the order. You can memorize Amman, if you want an acronym, Amman. And then all of the other messengers, Rusul, 313, roughly, perhaps. Allahu Alam. But according to the hadith, 313. And then all of just the Anbiya then just the Anbiya. And then after them, the angels, okay? And the heads of the angels are Jibreel alayhi salam, and then Mikael alayhi salam, and then Israfil alayhi salam, and then Izrael alayhi salam. So those are the 4 ru'asa. They are the heads of the angels. Gabriel, Jibreel alayhi salam, Mikael, Michael, Israfil, and then Izrael. So the Israfil who blows the trumpet, and Izrael, angel of death. And an angel, they describe what are angels exactly. They say ajsam latifa nuraniya. Angels are bodies, subtle bodies that are made of light. Angels are subtle bodies made of light. قادرة على التشكل بأشكال مختلفة بأشكال مختلفة في أشكال حسنة, that are able to take forms in various ways and of beautiful forms. شأنها الطاعة, their sha'n, what they really are about, is obedience. ومسكنها السماوات غالبا, and their residence is usually the heavens, the celestial realms. ومنهم من يسكن الأرض, and amongst them are those that live on earth. يسبحون الليل والنهار لا يفترون, they glorify Allah night and day without tire. ولا يعصون الله ما أمرهم ويفعلون ما يؤمرون, they do not disobey Allah in what they are commanded, and they do all that they are told to do. لا يوصفون بذكورة ولا أنوثة, they're not described as male or female. Okay, they're not described as male or female. And there's later in the lines, inshallah, we'll discuss the angels that are assigned to the human beings and their roles. But we know that there's angels, some of the angels on earth are those that tawafun, that they're roaming about the earth, seeking out halaqatul dhikr, seeking out gatherings of the remembrance of Allah. Okay, this is from many hadith about the angels that seek out gatherings of the remembrance of Allah. And amongst these types of gatherings is ta'lim, is teaching. So gatherings of teaching sacred knowledge and learning sacred knowledge, as well as making dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, salawat on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, reminding each other about the stories and the ayyam Allah, right, the days of God subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is all, the angels seek that out, and then from the beautiful hadith that they conglomerate there when they find it, and they make these circles, concentric circles, all the way up to the heavens, focusing on that point of the dhikr, where those people are, and until those of them that are in the divine presence, there's a beautiful conversation, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks them, you know, what did you find my servants doing? And they say that we found them glorifying you and praising you, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, have they seen my paradise? No. Have they seen my fire? No. And so then at the end of this beautiful conversation, Allah ta'ala says that you know, that I testify that I have forgiven them, that I have forgiven them all. Just by attending the gathering, all the people are forgiven. And then one of the angel objects and says that, you know, so-and-so came even though he did not come for the dhikr, he did not come for the remembrance of Allah or for the teaching of knowledge or whatever the dhikr is. There was just some worldly reason he had to fulfill, you know, he had to meet so-and-so, and he was there. And Allah Ta'ala says that وَلَهُ غَفَرْتِ, him as well have I forgiven. هُمُ الْقَوْمِ لَا يَشْقَى بِهِمْ جَلِيسُهُمْ هُمُ الْقَوْمِ لَا يَشْقَى بِهِمْ جَلِيسُهُمْ. Those are the people that anyone that sits with them will not be miserable. Anyone that sits with them will not be miserable. And yashqa, shaqi, is the one that goes to hell. Right? So linguistically, the person that sits with them won't be miserable. Metaphysically, such a person is destined for paradise, inshallah, just by sitting in the gathering of the dhakirin, those that remember Allah Ta'ala. And so, alhamdulillah, we ask Allah to accept our gatherings as these gatherings. هذا وقوم فصلوا إذ فضلوا وبعض كل بعضه قد يفضلوا. Okay, he says this is the general breakdown, the prophets and then the angels. He says, but وقوم, some of the scholars, some of the theologians, فصلوا إذ فضلوا, they gave the details when they mentioned the ranks. فصلوا, they gave details. إذ فضلوا, when they gave the ranks. وَبَعْضُ كُلٍّ بَعْضَهُ قَدْ يَفْضُلُ, and within each group you can have respective ranks as well. Within each group, so amongst the prophets we believe that there are respective ranks, even though we don't know their names and their ranks. Allah Ta'ala has ranks amongst the prophets, and amongst the angels as well. There is a hierarchy and rank amongst the angels. And so there's some discussion between Asharis and Maturidis on this, but the later Asharis accepted the Maturidi breakdown. Okay, and this is what Imam Bajuri, for example, says is the soundest presentation. So he says that again, the first five that we mentioned, the Ulul Azm, in the order we mentioned, that's the top of creation. Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam, Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam. After that, after them, alayhim salam jami'an, the rest of Rusul, the rest of the messengers, according to the hadith 313, wallahu alam. And then all the anbiya ghayr rusul, all the prophets that are not messengers, with their respective ranks. And then Jibreel, and then Mikael, and the other two ru'asa of the angels. Okay, so after all the messengers and prophets, the four heads of the angels, Jibreel alayhi salam, and then Mikael alayhi salam, and then the other two, and then the awliya of humanity. And then the awliya of humanity, followed by the rest of the angels. Followed by the rest of the angels. Okay, and each group again with their respective ranks. There's ranks amongst the awliya, there's ranks amongst the rest of the angels. But this is the Maturidi position which the later Ashris adopted. They said this is a tariqa al-rajiha, it's the stronger presentation. And so the awliya, the non-fusaq, the wali, the one that's not a fasiq, so the one that is not openly sinning, the one that is not persisting on a sin, the one that is not a criminal. So because the wali can sin, but they make tawbah immediately. And there's ranks. Some like we said, the hasanatul abrar, sayyatul muqarrabin, the good deeds of the merely righteous are the bad deeds of those closer to Allah. So there's degrees in this, but in general, after all the messengers and prophets and then the four heads of the angels, you have the awliya before the rest of the angels. Okay, we'll just try to read a few more lines to make some progress, inshallah, because don't want to fall too behind. So بالمعجزات أيدوا تكرما وعصمة الباري لكل حتما. The prophets أيدوا, they were aided بالمعجزات, with miracles. Okay, they were aided with miracles, takarruma, as an honor for them. Every prophet was aided with miracles, takarruma, as an honor for them. وعصمة الباري لكل حتما, and the infallibility granted by the Creator, عصمة الباري, the infallibility, the divine protection from sin granted by the Creator, لكل, for each of these, حتما, be absolutely certain. It's because it's wajib, it's an incumbent trait. So this is something we already covered with the amana, but the same Imam Laqani repeats it here, A for emphasis, and B to include the angels, because he just mentioned the angels in the last couple lines, and so he's saying for all of these prophets and angels we affirm necessarily infallibility. Prophets and angels cannot sin. So that's line 68. And then line 69, وخص خير الخلق أن قد تمم به الجميع ربنا وعمم بعثته فشرعه لا ينسخ بغيره حتى الزمان ينسخ. 69 and 70. خير الخلق, our Prophet ﷺ, the best of creation. خص, was given a unique gift, was given a unique miracle. أن قد تمم به الجميع ربنا, is that Allah completed by him all of them. Allah completed by him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all of them. He's the khatam, he's the last of the prophets. So Allah sealed messengership and prophethood with the best of creation, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is one of his greatest khasa'is, is he's the last. He's the last, right? In the worldly realm, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وعمم, and another of the khasa'is, another of the unique traits of our Prophet ﷺ, وَعَمَّمَا, then the next line, بِعْثَتَهُ, is that his sending was general, universal. He is the universal prophet. Okay, he is the universal prophet ﷺ, whether Arab or Ajam, whether Arab or non-Arab, whether ins or jinn, whether human or jinn, of all times, okay, from his time till Qiyam as-Sa'ah. So his universality is another of his khasa'is, and of course no other prophet had either of these two. They were not the last, nor were they universal in their message. And so, and even angels, they say that our Prophet ﷺ, his message is even to the angels as a tashrif, as an honor to them. So they don't have taklif. So the bi'tha, the sending of the Prophet ﷺ to humans and jinn, is one of taklif, one of moral responsibility, whereas it's also to the angels, but out of tashrif, out of honoring the angels. And so anyone that denies either of these two is a kafir, right? Anyone that denies the finality of the Prophet ﷺ, that they're outside of Islam, or if they deny the universality of the Prophet ﷺ, okay? Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. فَشَرْعُهُ لَا يُنْسَخُ, so his Shariah, the sacred law that he brings, لَا يُنْسَخُ بِغَيْرِهِ, cannot be abrogated or replaced by other. حَتَّى الزَّمَانُ يُنْسَخُ, until time itself is removed. Okay, so the first yunsakhu means to be abrogated or replaced. The second yunsakhu means to be removed entirely, effaced. And so this is a jinas. It's a really nice thing in balagha. But it means that his Shariah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, لا ينسخ بغيره, it cannot be abrogated or replaced by anyone else. حتى الزمان ينسخ, until time itself is effaced, i.e. until the afterlife. So it's till the end of time. So Sayyidina Isa AS, although he's alive, he never died. And so he is a prophet that's alive and a messenger that's alive in our realm, alayhi, he just ascended. And also that he will return at the end of time, alayhi. He is still a prophet and messenger, but he does not have the role of prophet or messenger. So this does not contradict the fact that Sayyidina Muhammad ﷺ is the last prophet. And that's why Sayyidina Isa ﷺ is following the Sharia of Muhammad ﷺ. He is following the Sharia of the Prophet ﷺ. So he prays the 5 prayers and does all of the, even when he comes down, the hadith says that Mahdi ﷺ is leading Fajr, steps back to allow Sayyidina Isa ﷺ to lead but Sayyidina Isa puts his blessed hand on the back of Mahdi to go forward and continue leading the prayer, and he joins as a follower because the Mahdi is the Imam, he is the Khalifa at the time. Isa ﷺ is a member of the ummah, and he has a specific role, which is to fight the Dajjal. So this is you know, so even on the opinion that Sayyidina Khidr ﷺ is still alive, and on the opinion that he's a prophet, which many ulama had, it does not contradict the finality of the Prophet ﷺ, because Sayyidina Khidr ﷺ does not have a prophetic role now. So a prophet could be alive after the passing of Sayyidina Muhammad ﷺ, but not with a prophetic role. Okay, so this is how we reconcile some of these issues. So it's now an everlasting Sharia. 71 وَنَسْخُهُ لِشَرْعِ غَيْرِهِ وَقَعْ حَتْمًا أَذَلَّ اللَّهُ مَنْ لَهُ مَنَعْ. And the fact that our Prophet's Sharia ﷺ abrogated the previous Sharias, وَقَعْ حَتْمًا, occurred absolutely. Okay, the نَسْخُهُ لِشَرْعِ غَيْرِهِ وَقَعْ حَتْمًا, the abrogation of our Sharia of all previous Sharias occurred without a doubt. And then he makes a dua, may Allah abase the one that denies this. May Allah abase the one that denies this. So, the Allah Ta'ala, he says that inna dina inda Allah al-Islam, right? The only religion with Allah is Islam. And وَمَنْ يَبْتَغِي غَيْرَ الْإِسْلَامِ دِينًا فَلَنْ يُقْبَلَ مِنْهُ وَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. Al Imran verse 85. Whoever seeks other than Islam a way of life, it will not be accepted from him, and he shall be amongst the losers in the next life. And then we'll just end with 72. وَنَسْخَ بَعْدِ شَرْعِهِ بِالْبَعْدِ أَجِزْ وَمَا فِي ذَا لَهُ مِنْ غَصِّ. وَنَسْخَ بَعْدِ شَرْعِهِ بِالْبَعْدِ أَجِزْ وَمَا فِي ذَا لَهُ مِنْ غَصِّ. So أجز, allow for, from ijaza, allow for نسخ بعض شرعه بالبعض, some of this last Sharia of Islam, some of it abrogating other of it. Okay, within the Sharia of Islam, there was abrogation as an internal phenomenon. Some of the ayat abrogated previous ayat. So abrogation as a legal phenomenon is part of our Sharia. Okay, وَمَا فِي ذَا لَهُ مِنْ غَصٍ, and there's nothing that does not entail any deficiency. There's no naqs in that, right? And this is something in the usul. In usul, they discuss what's the types of naskh, what's the scope of it, and the reason, the wisdom of that. And that's not something that's a problem in any way. It just means that Allah Ta'ala revealed some rulings for temporary. So there's no change in God's mind. When he revealed the first ruling that would later be abrogated, he did it with the knowledge and will that this would be it would be applied temporarily, and then he would reveal what he already knew, what would be the ultimate final ruling to take its place. So alhamdulillah, shukrillah, we made some progress. Any questions? The aqidah in this stage gets a lot easier than the early classes. No. The hadith mentions that angels have wings. Jibreel a.s., when he appeared in his full form, he had over 600 wings, and he filled the entire horizon. And so Allahu Alam, it's mentioned that angels have wings. Yes, absolutely. So the question about walaya ghair muktasib, does that person have to follow the Sharia as well? Absolutely. No one can bypass the Sharia, and the moment a person does that or claims to do that, they immediately lose all their walaya and they become fasiq. They become a transgressor. So the Sharia is always that is the lens by which a person is measured to see whether they are by themselves internally. That's the only lens we can use to measure ourselves, to see how we're doing So what all it's meant is that there's certain types of knowledge and gifts that Allah gives to some people just out of grace to them, even though they did not necessarily struggle to acquire that. That's all it means. So they still have the wali muktasib, but they also have other things that they didn't necessarily work for. Allah Ta'ala just gifts it. In addition, yeah, no one can avoid that, the implementation of the Shariah. No. Sorry, real quick on that too. There was a story of one of the sheikhs who someone came to him and said, so and so claims to have reached a station, a level of their walaya that they can now, and he mentioned something impermissible that they now think they can do that, like wasala ila hal, they reached a state where they can now do listening to something impermissible. And the sheikh said, naam wasala lakin ila saqar. He says, yes, he's arrived, however, to the hell. So the moment a person thinks that because of some level they have, they can, bypass the clear, the Sharia of Islam, then it's fisk. And that's different from exceptions of rulings based off of, within the Sharia, there are exceptions. That's a different discussion, like need, necessities, in certain circumstances, things that are normally impermissible, there might be some leeway, and that's a different discussion. But this means just, flat out contravention. That contradicts walaya. Sorry, your question was about nisyan. What was it? Right. So it's the principle that prophets cannot forget anything before it's conveyed is because of the necessary attribute that they convey. They have to convey. Otherwise, it would be lost. Nothing can be lost that has to be conveyed. Let me check that narration. Inshallah, I don't recall the details of it. Yeah, but even then, was it wajib for him to convey it, or was he just going to convey it as an extra? Right? Was it so? He would never, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, forget something that had to be conveyed to us. Laylatul Qadr, its exact time does not have to be conveyed to us, and there's actually a wisdom in it being hidden. So, no. Go ahead. Yeah. Alaikum salam. How do they explain what? Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. Let me check the tafsir of that, see what the mufassirun say. But one thing we could say, so how do scholars explain the grief of Sayyidina Yacub AS over the loss of Sayyidina Yusuf AS? So, that by no means was it a worldly attachment, or an attachment not for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and by no means was it any sort of objection to the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the same way our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam wept when his children died, when he was burying Ibrahim, for example, alayhi salam, and some of the Sahaba were confused. They say, why are you weeping? And he said that this is just mercy from the heart. Right? This is just mercy from the heart. So missing a loved one, and this is not contravening the divine decree. And also we know that Sayyidina Yacub AS' love for Sayyidina Yusuf AS was for the sake of Allah. It was for the sake of Allah. And that there were, some of the ulama do mention that there were spiritual fruits that they would experience when they were together that they didn't have when they were separate. So their remembrance of Allah was enhanced when they were in each other's company. And some of them mentioned this, but inshallah I'll try to research it more, give a more definitive answer inshallah from the tafsir. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So a good question that the brethren of Sayyidina Yusuf AS, that they were if they're on the opinion that they were the asbat, there is a khilaf, but on the opinion that they were the asbat, then they too became prophets. So then how is that reconciled with their act? So this is something that's mentioned in the literature, and they give the same explanation as what we mentioned about Sayyidina Adam AS and Sayyidina Khidr AS, that it was an outward, it was the outward form of a contravention, but inwardly it was something that that Allah had revealed to them that they were to do, and Allah showed them the wisdom of it, the wisdom of Sayyidina Yusuf AS emerging triumphant in Misr, in Egypt, with all the fruits and benefits that he experienced. So it was, just like Khidr AS on the opinion that he's a prophet, and on the opinion that he's a wali, then a fortiori it's a problem. But when he kills a boy on the outward form, it's a contravention, and that's why Sayyidina Musa AS said, "What did you just do?" But inwardly, he said, "Wama fa'altu an amri." I did not do this on my own accord. So Allah had willed this, and Allah taught him that knowledge. And so, if on the opinion that Khidr AS is a wali, then certainly a prophet could get inward knowledge more than a wali. And on the opinion that Khidr AS is a prophet, then he's in the same class as the brethren of Yusuf and Adam AS, etc., etc. So this is the story of Sayyidina Khidr AS is really key to just understanding the states of prophets, and so outward contraventions with inward concordance with the divine will and with knowledge of the divine decree. Yeah, so something similar then. We can check the ayah, but something similar. Just like Allah says about Sayyidina Adam AS, فَوَسْوَسَ إِلَيْهِ الشَّيْطَانِ, that shaitan did waswasa towards him. They say it was an outward waswasa, but it never went in the heart. So similarly, it would be an outward satanic attempt at influence without any inward effect of it, any inward result of that. This is how they would interpret it. No.
Bismillah. Just a few questions from online, if you permit.
Let
me see. Muhammad Suleiman asked, can I ask about the return of Prophet Isa alayhi salam and his miracles that he was granted by Allah? Will he possess those same miracles?
Allahu alam. Allahu alam. What we know from the hadith is that he returns, he kills the Dajjal, he ends the jizya, he breaks the cross, he kills the pig. So that's what's mentioned. As for will he have the same miracles? Allahu alam. I'm not sure.
We'll have to wait and see.
May Allah save us from being at the time of Dajjal.
No, subhanAllah.
Prophet ﷺ would make dua regularly to be saved from the fitna of Dajjal, the worst fitna. Alhamdulillah.
Can I ask another? Zainab asks, you mentioned that it is haram to argue about aqidah. I don't really understand this prohibition. For example, is it haram to argue with a friend that has some thoughts in aqidah that are wrong?
Well, this goes back to Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar, which the only, if there's a high likelihood that it's going to cause more fitna or more harm, then it's makruh or haram to do that. Okay, and but if there is a high likelihood of benefit and one has studied and has sound knowledge, and there's a high likelihood of benefit, then that's fine. But, so what I meant by argument is, where it's a back and forth and there's no, but as for sitting down and explanation that's beneficial and the person is receptive to that, then that's fine.
And I have a third.
But when I said haram, I was referring to lay people, i.e. people that haven't studied these things. So if someone has studied it and they're teaching, that's not argument, that's ta'lim. And so as long as the recipient is receptive, then inshallah it's fine.
Thank you. And the other question is from Ilham. Assalamu alaikum. With regards to the hadith on Allah's love for His servant, are there any signs or indications that signifies to us that we earned His pleasure and thus His love?
Ya Rab. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. So the hadith concludes that after all of the angels love that person, ثُمَّ يُدْعَوْ لَهُ الْقَبُولِ فِي الْأَرْضِ, then qabul, which is love in the hearts of people, is placed for that person on earth. So some of the ulama mention in the commentaries of the hadith that there is a mahabba and a mail, there's an inclination and a love of people around that person for that person, and they find that people have a positive attitude with them, etc. Imam Ghazali, there's many hadith about this. In Tirmidhi, inna idam al-jaza bi'idam al-bala wa inna Allah ta'ala idha habba qawman ibtalahum faman radiya falahu rida wa man sakhita falahu sukht. That verily the greatness of reward is commensurate with the greatness of the test. And verily when Allah loves a person, He tests them. Inna Allah ta'ala idha ahabba qawman ibtalahum. Verily when Allah loves a person, He tests them. So Imam Ghazali, based off this hadith and others, he says if one wants to know if Allah loves them, then just see the test in their lives. This is one of our responses to theodicy, is that it's an indication of love that Allah has for someone. If someone's undergoing a trial, someone has a sickness, someone has some difficulty, problems, it's a sign, inshallah, that Allah loves them. And the hadith ends, فَمَنْ رَضِيَ فَلَوْ رِضَى. As long as the person is content with Allah, not objecting to Allah doing that to them, then they will have Allah's rida, they will have Allah's pleasure on them. فَمَنْ سَخِطَ, but whoever is upset and frustrated at God, فَلَهُ السُّخْطِ, then God will be frustrated at them. وَلَعَذُ بِاللَّهِ. And there's a narration that Allah revealed to Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, that verily when I want to make someone a wali of mine, verily when I want to make someone a wali of mine, I send him tests that the mountains cannot bear. I send him tests that the mountains cannot bear. And if he is content and does not complain to other people about me, I make him my wali and my habib. I make him my friend and my beloved. And so this is a lot. If you look at the literature, that we don't ask for tests, we ask for afiyah, we ask for well-being, safety, security, health. But if Allah decrees a difficulty for someone, then inshallah it's a good sign. And we should have a husna dhan billah. Ana inda dhani abdi bi. The hadith says, hadith Qudsi, I am in the opinion of my servant for me. If he thinks well of me, I shall be good to him. So we should have always have a really good opinion of Allah. And one of the keys to when going through a trial is husna dhan. This is at the heart of dealing with a trial, is just having a good opinion, believing that this is going to be tremendous, there's going to be tremendous good in this. That just having that iman is one of the highest forms of worship to Allah, is just believing in His goodness and embracing His goodness and believing in His lutf and embracing His lutf and holding dear to that. And that that some of the ulama, they said that if one wants to see why Allah sent someone a test, if the person's response during a test is to complain to other people and to be frustrated at God, it's a sign that the test came because of sin that they're doing. But if the person doesn't complain to people and they're patient, then if they don't complain to people and they're patient during the test, it's a sign that that Allah loves them. That the reason Allah sent the test is because of His love for them. And if they're more than just patient, if they're actually, it's scary even describing the levels of these people, but that if they're actually fully content with the test and they have no, they're fully they have full rida with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is a very high level, then it's a sign that Allah loves them and is raising their ranks. Allah loves them and is raising their ranks. So these are some of the indications, and it doesn't mean if someone doesn't have a test they should feel bad they're not a wali and start asking for it. A'udhu billah. Okay, always ask for afiyah, always ask for well-being, health, security, and just give shukr. If one doesn't have tests, then give a lot of shukr, because Imam Ghazali mentions that one of the people of Allah Ta'ala, that every day he used to go to 3 places. He used to go to the hospital and observe the people that were sick, and he used to go to the prison and see how the prisoners were being mistreated, and he used to go to the grave and see how the families were in grief. Every day he did his rounds at these 3 places, then he would go home and have complete shukr the whole day of what Allah is protecting him from. It would enhance his shukr based off the hadith, "Unduru ila man huwa asfala minkum wa la tanduru ila man huwa fawqakum fa huwa ajdaru an la taziru ni'matallahi alaykum." Look upon those that have less than you in material blessings, not those that have more than you in material blessings, because that's better for your shukr. That's more commensurate, that you don't belittle the blessings of God upon you. And so if a person doesn't have trials, don't worry about am I wali or not, just give shukr. Just embrace gratitude and give a lot of gratitude. Alhamdulillah. No. If the sin is forgiven, then the sin is forgiven, it's gone. It's as if the person, "Ata'ib min adham kaman la dhanba lahu." The Prophet ﷺ said, the one that makes tawbah from a sin is the same as one that has no sin. Alhamdulillah. Anything else?
Yes, it looks like there's last one here. Amin asked, are the tribulations the ummah is going through a sign of love or a sign of our departure from the right path?
Astaghfirullah. Yeah, it's best not to, well, Allahu Alam, it's very hard, confusing times, it's very difficult to speculate. Allah Ta'ala, He says, "La yusalu amma yafal wa hum yusalun." He is not asked about what He does, but they shall be asked. But we do know that our Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Inna hadhihi al-umma ummatun marhuma." Verily, this ummah is it's a community that has grace upon it. Marhuma, it has special rahmah on it. Ju'ilat adabuha fi dunyaha. Its punishment was made in this dunya. Its punishment was made in this dunya. So, inshallah, we have again good opinion of Allah that obviously any difficulty for the believer, whether personally or as a community, the first response should be introspection. This is the adab. The first response of a tribulation is to just do an introspection and to see where are we distant, where are we wrong, what are our contraventions, what are we doing that is displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to rectify that, to fix it immediately, inshallah. May Allah give us tawfiq for that. And aside that, then we embrace a good opinion of Allah. So whether on the personal or on the societal, we can never let go of a good opinion of Allah. But we do know that our Prophet ﷺ foretold of the tremendous fitan that would afflict the ummah, and inshallah, we are hopeful that in the next life, the ummah will be safe. This is something that from the shafa of the Prophet ﷺ, we know that inshallah our ummah will be safe in the next life. So there is that aspect there, that there is our punishment is in this world, and that is a mercy to us, but we, whether a particular trial in a particular place of a particular people is because they are distant or something, this is not something we can do. We cannot speculate about any group or even our own society. This is not something that, this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His domain, not our domain. So in general, we do introspection, and we do nasiha to ourselves and others, and we have a good opinion of Allah. Alhamdulillah. Anything else?
Just a lot of prayers and thanks for your lesson today, and also for the answers to questions were very helpful. Appreciate that.
Alhamdulillah, shukran. May Allah accept. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad, an-nabiyyu al-ummi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam, walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.